Hi everybody, we're going to start with our work in the style of Wayne Thiebaud. Now anyone can do a Wayne Thiebaud inspired piece like cupcakes or ice cream or things like that. I'm challenging you today to try something a little different. So instead of doing cupcakes or food, and he did a lot of that, and I did see him do some cups and plates and lipsticks and things like that, I want you to look around you and find something that you just happen to have that's close by that you could turn into a painting that's been inspired by Wayne Thiebaud. So I looked around and what did I have? I had some containers of paint. So I went ahead and I set them all up and I created a composition and then I took a photo of it. So step one, set up a composition and take a photo. Come back when you've got that. Okay, you have your composition, fantastic. Here's mine, I took it on the iPad. I can go big, I can go small, I can do whatever I need. It's right there for me. Some people would say, oh, let's start with a pencil. No, not you. We're gonna drop the pencil, just like we're dropping that old Wayne Thiebaud food thing, and we're gonna go for something a little different. We're gonna do an underpainting. And what we're gonna do is use more of a neutral color of paint, and we're going to sketch out our composition on here in that neutral color of paint. So, so bear with me. I'm gonna start and I'm gonna go in and out. So I'm gonna take some of that neutral, this is yellow oxide. My painting professor in college used to say you wanted to use something that if you made a big mistake on, you could just paint over, no big deal. And this is a great color to just paint over with no big deal. So then I want to look at my brush selection. I have a whole bunch of brushes, and this is making my life a little more complicated. I want something that I can just kind of sketch out with. So I'm looking around, and for me, there's no right or wrong answer on this, but I'm going to go with something a little smaller because as you can see, my board is a little smaller. So a smaller brush, a smaller board, a smaller, I should be better because I tend to go big. So I've got this, I've got my water set up, and normally I don't like to use a lot of water, but with this, we really want to water it down. So I'm going to take some water and I'm going to start to water it down. You can see in here. So I'm going to set this up so I can see it. And I'm actually going to come down and paint at a different angle. So I'm going to just paint. You can take a So I'm going to stop with this background. Pull it up so you can see it. That's my background. I have my repetition. I have my shadows, my strong shadows that Thiebaud has. I have that horizon line going on in the back. Now the next thing that Thiebaud does a lot with is texture, and we're going to work on some texture here to really build it up before we even start with the paint. So what we're going to do now is start to build up that texture without using the paint. What I used to do was build up with masking tape, and I would build the masking tape and then paint over that. And then I would try mixing paint with sand to really thicken it up. But we found this stuff that's molding paste, and this is the light molding paste, which means it's not going to do so much weight to this, but it will bulk up the paint. So the crazy thing is we put this on here before we even use the paint. So I'm going to take some of this, I'm going to squeeze it out over here, and you can tell I went a little too wild with my paint up here. So I'm trying to not go so crazy because you know, you want to be thoughtful about that. I'm going to use a palette knife, but I've also got all these brushes if I need, but I don't want this to dry up in my good brushes. So I'm going to stick with a palette knife. So here we go. I'm just going to build up the texture where I want the texture, but I also want to think about where Thiebaud has his texture. It's not always just in the subject matter. Sometimes you can see it going in the background in a certain direction. So I want to think about the direction I want things to go as well as building it up. Here we go. So I know that he tends to put his paint on like he's icing a cake. And I know that these bottles are going around, so I think I want to ice them going across, back and forth across, because I don't want them to feel like they're going straight up and down. I want you to feel like you have the weight and the flow of the sides of the bottles. So I'm going to pull that in. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'll grab some of this for this one. Put some on here. One thing I really like about working with this stuff is that It's just fun. I think it's a lot of fun. But I like that if you make a mistake, you can just scrape it out and try again as long as you work fairly quickly. So I'm going to line this stuff up over here and I'm going to start to blend. The other thing I really like to notice is that if you make a mistake, sometimes you want to embrace it. So I really liked how I was building up that surface over there before it got all smoothed out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that a little bit to build up that surface and pull that back in there. Maybe pull this over just a smidge. And then I know I want to do some for the bottom, but I want the bottom to have a different feeling than that middle part. I want this part and this part to have similar feelings, almost like it's sandwiching that middle part. So I'm going to just do a little bit differently than what I've done to the others. All right, so I've got this started. I think I'm going to do a little bit up here. Not too much, but I really like that idea of pulling in the lines that are usually on lids. If you think about it, you have this kind of thing happening in those lines. So I think I'm going to start by smearing it out, getting it smooth, going up to my edges, and then taking this, pulling it down, just to give it that feeling of those ridges that are in a lid. Take some over here, smooth it out. And I'll have to tell you, there's no right or wrong right now. We're just playing with it. We're just figuring it out. We're just trying different things. Okay, so I've got that. I'm happy with that a lot. I'm actually super happy with that. I want to think about the shadows some. So I'm going to take some of this and I'm just going to give it a smoothed on, almost like just iced on thing happening here. Oh no, we don't want that. So I'm going to scrape that away. But hooray, I've got that to take care of it for me. I'm going to do a little bit over here as well. Okay, and then I noticed some things that happened in his background. So in his background back here, I noticed that he had some straight across streaks. So I'm actually going to turn my canvas to try to get some of that idea happening here. And I'm going to ice mine straight across. All right, a little bit thicker in here just to really get that idea of icing going across the top. Even though it's not icing, we're just going along with his concept. And then since I've done that on the back, I'm going to do a little texture in here, but nothing crazy, just to give it some bits of texture. Maybe I'll go this way this time because I don't want it to compete with the other sides. I want it to just kind of flow with. So there we are. You can see the texture, and I like how the light is catching up the highlights and the shadows and the levels. So you can really see the thickness and the depth of the texture. So now we have to let it dry for a couple of hours. You're just gonna sit down, go play a game, go read a book, go outside, go do something fun. See you in a minute.